How strong is your property management agreement? How many years has it been since you've updated that agreement to ensure that it's in place and it's solid for the relationship you have with your tenant? See, your property management agreement is one of the most important factors of the relationship you're going to have with your owner because it defines that relationship. So I want to take just a few minutes and talk to you about 5 clauses that we have in our agreement that I think you really should consider putting in yours if they're not already there, in order to help you define your relationship, to make your business run smoother, and to keep your business profitable. So you ready? Here we go. The first one we're going to talk about is maintenance, right? Maintenance is one of the biggest headaches and hassles of property management. The way we define maintenance with our owners impacts everything within the scope of our business. One thing I hear from property managers is a frustration with my owners want to be over involved in the maintenance process. They want me to call them before I fix any leaky sink. They want to know everything before it happens. If you define it properly, you set expectations, and that's part of the management agreement focus. You set the expectations on the front end. Here's a clause we have in our agreement as it relates to the way we're going to handle maintenance between us, the owner, and the tenant. And it simply reads like this: the expense to be incurred for any one item of maintenance, excluding work on hot water heaters, HVAC systems, or roof, shall not exceed the sum of, and then you put in whatever you feel is fair there. I think we have $500 in ours. Unless such expense is specifically authorized by owner. Now there's more, but let's pause here for a minute. So what we're saying to the owner is, look, we're not going to do any one item of repair in excess of $500 or whatever you think is fair without checking with you first, Mr. Owner. That's the threshold. That's the threshold we determine before we will contact you for your approval on maintenance. Important factor, it does exclude things like water heaters. Why does it exclude water heaters? Because water heaters are going to be expensive to replace. It excludes things like HVAC. It excludes things like the roof. Not that we're going to go in and replace a roof, but if there's a roof repair that needs to be done, we're going to get that done, because these are important emergency items that we're not going to reach out to the owner in advance for. So the way I explain it to the owner is, Mr. Owner, I understand you want to be contacted for maintenance in advance. How old is your hot water heater? Well, it was about 8 years old. Okay, well, I can promise you in the next 10 years it's going to go out. It just will. Okay, probably 5 years. When that goes out, what we're not going to do is call you and say, gosh, your hot water heater's out, what do you want to do? We're not going to do that. We'll notify you that it went out. We'll notify you that we replaced it, but we're not going to ask you for your permission or your input on what to do. That's what you're paying us to do. So that's an excluded item, and it's going to be more than $500, Mr. Owner. Now this paragraph goes on to say this: or is incurred under such circumstances as the agent, that's us, shall reasonably deem to be necessary. Such repairs shall be made by agent at owner's expense without owner's prior approval. Now, if you're a prospective owner, you may say, gosh, Mark, that's giving you a pretty wide latitude there. You're saying that you can approve these things if you, me, Mark, I deem them appropriate without checking with the owner? To which I reply, yes, that's correct, Mr. Owner. So you're hiring me for my judgment. If you don't trust my judgment, please don't hire me. But if things need to be repaired, in our estimation, even if they're over that $500 threshold, we're going to get it done, because we know that's important for the safety of your property, the preservation of your property, the safety of the tenant, and the long-term sustainability and durability of the tenant. As long as we explain these things on the front end, owners are okay with it. If they're not okay with it, I want to address it now, not after the maintenance item has happened. So that's clause number 1. Clause number 2 that we really like also relates to maintenance, and this is a profitability clause. So it simply says this: any vendor invoice may be billed to the owner at a rate of cost plus, and you put in whatever you think is fair, percentage, or at current market rate as determined by broker. So we do have a maintenance oversight fee for our maintenance. I know what you're thinking, gosh, that'd be great. Our owners would never go for that. Well, maybe they would, maybe they won't. It's in the way you present that process. Now, we don't have time in this short video to go detailed on this. We certainly do it in our ancillary business services and talk about how to present that, how to explain that, because it's in the presentation. When you can explain to an owner why maintenance is so important, that you take it very seriously in your company, and you explain what your maintenance process is and how detailed and thorough and in-depth it is, then it makes sense to charge for that maintenance oversight. It's not an up bill, it's not an add-on, it's a maintenance oversight fee, or a vendor oversight charge for that. Because we're in essence acting as a general contractor, aren't you? When you send somebody out, or you have to get bids for work or turnovers, you're kind of acting like a general contractor, not in the legal definition, but in the practical definition. This helps offset the costs you incur and I incur by handling maintenance, and it's a good profit center and a necessary profit center, I would argue, and a very rational one for your clients. Do our owners push back on this? No, they don't. We explain it on the front end. We don't hide this somewhere. But it's real. It's necessary for us as a property management company to provide you, Mr. Owner, a very high level of maintenance service. And you're going to find the highest level of maintenance service with our company. Part of the reason is we've got to pay for that stuff. My people don't work for free. Clause number 3, regarding dispositions of security deposit returns. The disposition of the security deposit of all tenants, whether the deposit is held by the owner or the agent, shall be at the sole discretion of agent. I'm the one deciding the deposit return. There's a few more words there. Agent may elect, at agent's option, to forward tenant's security deposit funds to the owner, and the owner shall have the full legal obligation and responsibility for the tenant's security deposit disbursement and any resulting legal actions. Mr. Owner, when the tenant moves out of the property, we're going to do the security deposit return. Now, if we get into a dispute with the owner, and this doesn't happen very often, but if the owner says, I want you to charge for those tack holes in the wall, they were not there when the tenant moved in. You say, Mr. Owner, this tenant was in the property for 3 years. Little tack holes aren't damaged. That's wear and tear. I don't care. I want you to charge for that. I don't want to charge for that, Mr. Owner. They're going to come back after me for that. Well, I demand you charge for it. Okay, here's what we're going to do, Mr. Owner. I'm going to turn the security deposit over to you, the full deposit. You can do the security deposit disposition. You can charge for whatever you want to charge for. That's now between you and the tenant. We've removed ourselves from that situation. We have to legally disclose to the tenant that you are now holding the deposit, who you are. So if there's a dispute, it's going to be between you guys. We're not going to get in the middle of this. Again, this doesn't happen very often, but it gives us the ability to step out of that situation when the security deposit gets a little bit sticky that way. Number 4. Owner understands, and this is related to service animals, because what happens if your owner says, great, I'm ready to sign up, let's go. By the way, I don't want any pets on my property. And you say, great, we'll do a no pet property advertising. And then suddenly the tenant comes in and they don't have a pet, but they have a service animal. Well, how are you going to explain that to your owner? We put this in our management agreement. Owner understands that state and federal law govern service animals and emotional support animals, and those animals are not legally considered pets, and therefore pet policies do not apply. Goes on to say, agent shall have full authority to review, approve, negotiate, or decline any and all service animal requests. Pretty straightforward, pretty black and white. Mr. Owner, if the tenant comes in with a service animal request, we're not going to come back to you and get your opinion on it, because I'm guessing you don't have a thorough knowledge of the laws, federal and state, governing service animals. We do, and we're the ones at risk for this. So we're disclosing on the front end that we're taking care of this. It keeps owners from getting upset after the fact if you tell them you approved a service animal, because it's not their concern, it's your concern. Lastly, number 5. I love this one. You got to get this one in there, okay? At the expiration of the initial and any subsequent term of this agreement, okay, so when this agreement comes up for renewal, all terms and conditions are subject to change by agent with a 30-day notice to owner. Isn't it difficult to get your owners to agree to changes in your management agreement? How do you do that? Do you have to send out new agreements every couple years, get them to sign off on those changes? What if they don't like the changes? Now you're getting into a negotiation and discussion. This clause allows us to unilaterally change the terms of the agreement with a simple 30-day notice at the expiration of any initial change. Think about it this way. You probably subscribe to a cable service provider. Have you ever gotten something from your cable service provider in the mail and it says, it's like 5 pages long in 5-point print, and it says, the following terms and conditions are adjusted in your contract? You don't read that stuff. But the first contract you signed had a clause in there similar to this that said, hey, we can change the terms of our agreement if needed simply by notifying you. That's what you're doing with this. And this isn't a way to sneak stuff into the agreement. This is a way to stay current with the agreement. So if your state, if your regulatory agency requires changes and updates, you can just insert those in, notify your owners of those changes, and you're ready to go. Now, again, on all these things, check with your attorney, make sure it's acceptable for your state. But putting these things in place, especially as we finish up, this is being recorded here, the fourth quarter of 2017, as we head into the new year, this is important in place to make sure your management agreement is solid, protecting you, protecting your owner, and making your business run smooth.